everybody. I'm Sarabeth Berk, and I'm so excited to do this LinkedIn Live because becoming more than your title is the beginning of a series I will be hosting. And usually I will have other guests with me because we're going to be exploring what is this journey of being someone with multiple identities who wears a lot of hats. I call them hybrid professionals, and they are all amongst us in the workforce. And yet we're not talking about this openly. And so I want to share the stories of people that are hybrid professionals who are more than their titles and explore their challenges, their uniqueness, their lessons learned, and insights, because we need more of these role models. But I wanted to use my time today to let you know more about me and why I'm in this work and how I see myself, and more specifically, what do I do? So I usually share that I am a hybrid professional and I work in jobs that are hybrid jobs, which means they allow me to be the sum of my parts, my multiple identities. And on this other side, I am a researcher and thought leader about what is a hybrid professional workforce? What is hybrid identity in our work? So I wrote a book called More Than My Title, The Power of Hybrid Professionals in a Workforce of Experts and Generalists, because I want to make this topic that you can be all of your things in your work and not confuse people. You don't just have to be an expert, and you're not just a jack of all trades. You are actually a hybrid, and that is the message that is empowering and is honestly the truth of how most of us are working and don't know how to talk about it. So a lot of what I do in this work, talking about and writing about hybrids, is combining a new space. Let me explain. I've realized I'm working at the intersection of personal branding, career development, and identity research. Those three things haven't been brought together this way before. I consider myself an identity researcher. I'm not from marketing. I'm not from some other industry. And because I have that lens of the academic theory and literature and human development, I see identity as who we are and what we call ourselves. And that's a spectrum. We have so many identities we bring to the table in morning, noon, or night. It depends where we are. Social identities, personal identities, and professional identities. Now, I focus just on the dimension of our profession, what we do for work, whether or not we're getting paid, but the things we tell people we do for a living. And just within that one dimension, there are multiple things. People have multiple identities in their work. They might be doing some sales and some coding and some creative design and some strategy and some, whiteboarding, and the list goes on. And that's why people say, well, I don't know what to say, what to tell you I do. I wear a lot of hats. So professional identity is where I focus. But then in addition to that, there's this whole part of personal branding, which is how the world sees you, how you make them feel, what your reputation is, what the stories are that you're saying and that they're hearing and sharing about you. That is your personal brand. And I believe your personal brand is a branch from your identity, who you are. So that's why those two go together. Then this other piece, career development, that is about following and finding your passion and your purpose and knowing your strengths and your skills. And so career development helps unpack that and create a narrative and strategies on how to find the job of your dreams. But you can't find the job of your dreams and know your narrative until you know your identity. Who the heck are you? When you're pursuing your passion and purpose, you need to know what you're calling yourself, which comes back to identity. So I have created this new idea that sits at the middle of those. This notion of being a hybrid professional is important to your personal brand, and it's important to your career development, career search, and just your professional way of being. If you are someone that has multiple identities, whether you're changing jobs or whether you're changing industries, or you just know a lot of things in different fields, you've got that interdisciplinary, cross-disciplinary knowledge, then you're likely a hybrid and you don't know it. And I believe when you have the power to look at yourself as all of these ingredients, right? Different parts of yourself. And you can see the bigger picture of how they connect together, how they fit into the sum of who you are in your work. That is when you finally get to be your truest self. You finally get to share you are this hybrid because your expertise is formed at the intersection of all of your parts. This is what I'm so passionate in sharing. And I'm seeing time and time again, the more people that know about this and then feel the permission to be their multiple things at the same time in their work, it is so invigorating and enlivening. It's almost like a transformative experience. I call it an identity awakening. And personally, I've gone through 4. I know I'm on my 4th identity transformation because they usually start with a crisis. I usually feel lost and confused, and I'm struggling to describe who am I and what do I do and how do I tell the world what my value is. And traditionally, I've been stuck under job titles like being a director of a program or being a program coordinator. And that just never explained who I am, nor did it showcase all of my parts. And I often felt like I had to compartmentalize and just show up as one of my identities in work, like just being a teacher or just being a researcher, when in truth, those things were influencing and helping each other make me me. So when I look at my own professional identity, because I mentioned I'm a hybrid professional, I have 4 primary identities. I call them my ingredients of what make me the best at my work. My ingredients are being an artist, a researcher, a designer, and an educator. When I realized those are the parts of me that are inseparable, they are so true to what I do and they make me alive. And when I'm in them, I'm in my most flow. I realized I needed a way to name that. I couldn't just be listing Sarabeth, the artist, researcher, designer, because it just is a list of identities. So my hybrid title that I've designed and given to myself is creative disruptor. I call myself a creative disruptor. That is how I walk in the world when I am my fullest identity in work. And I can map it back all the way to my earlier jobs and where I started in my career. I didn't know this about myself in my 20s, but I've always been a version of this creative disruptor. I just didn't know how to express it because no one told me hybridity was an option. I literally thought I had to choose one type of work and have one career path, but I liked so many things. I was doing the zigzag. I kept changing and morphing, and that's why I felt lost and confused. And eventually, this knowledge of hybridity has let me reconcile and bring all those pieces made back together. So there's a big pain point here that I'm really acknowledging, and often it's not discussed in personal branding and career development. People aren't talking about identity as the place to start in those spaces. So in my book, as I mentioned, more than my title, I want to read a section where I identify where this pain point starts, what we're feeling in society, because it's pretty universal. So if you want to follow along, on page 54, I mentioned Alain de Botton. He has a TED talk that you need to listen to. He's also a philosopher and the creator of the School of Life, which is very philosophical and looks at life and all these different things we experience. So Alain de Botton calls the "what do you do" remark the most iconic question of the 21st century. In an interview, he stated, "Our identities are entirely bound up with our work. You can't really understand someone without understanding what their job is." In other words, there is a real danger of a disconnect between what's on your business card and who you are deep inside. And it's not a disconnect that the world is ready to be patient with. And then I added, this danger of that disconnect is felt by professionals of all kinds, even those who aren't hybrids. Society defines and judges us by how we introduce ourselves. This is why there's so much anxiety, self-confidence, and self-worth wrapped up with professional introductions. We've been conditioned to associate who a person is with what they do, even though we know job titles and professions offer an incomplete picture of a person. So that's really a foundation of why I do this work. We get wrapped up in our identities and what we do for work being a way that we define ourselves. But the bigger picture is that we get to define who we are and how we want the world to see us. Just because we're given a title by society and it's on our business card doesn't really mean that communicates and expresses us. When you find that you are the sum of your parts, you are this hybrid, even people that are multi-hyphenates and multi-potentialites and slashes and gig workers and freelancers and entrepreneurs, all those people say they wear a lot of hats, they do a lot of things. But learning that you actually can talk about being a hybrid and you get to invent a name for your hybridity, that is your secret sauce. That's where your uniqueness gets to shine. And that is your competitive advantage because you no longer sound like all the other people with the same job titles saying they are also good at sales and good at design and good at coding and developing and strategy. Because we all are using the same language, it's not helping us stand out anymore. So knowing your hybridity is knowing your unique value, and it's knowing how you stand out in the world. And that goes to Elaine de Botton's point that we are all reducing each other to just a set of your work is who you are. And I want to bring it back to an identity conversation. Who are you? What do you want to call yourself? And that's how we need to look at this question of what do you do? It's about revealing more about the sum of our parts. So I look forward to exploring so many more conversations with any of you about your professional identity, especially if you are a hybrid and you've been wrestling with this and struggling to figure out how do you fit into the workforce? Where do you belong? When you have a degree in science and philosophy and you're an engineer and you know medicine, where the heck do you go and how do you explain that? Because you feel like you have to hide or only show one identity at a time. And the truth is, there is a magic there, and it's about expressing the hybridity you have. So please reach out if you ever want to be in one of my LinkedIn Live conversations. I'd love to have you join. I'll be doing these about twice a week. And the goal is to share and inspire wherever you are in your journey about your own lived experience of your hybridity. Also, I'd love for people to follow me. You can learn more about my work at morethanmytitle.com. And I'm putting that up right here. Find me at morethanmytitle.com. And you can follow me on Instagram at morethanmytitle. I'm also pretty active on LinkedIn. And I like to post things. And there's a newsletter too you can find. And then, of course, read my book. If you're really, really interested in this, More Than My Title, The Power of Hybrid Professionals in a Workforce of Experts and Generalists is available on Amazon. And there's a workbook. So the book, More Than My Title, really explains this concept. It gives case studies. It describes who are you in your intersections and what does that even mean? But then people ask me, well, what are the tools? How do I apply this? That's what the workbook is for. I also have an online course and other things to go with that. So there are a lot of resources I make available. But mostly, I'd love for you to join me in this work, share your stories, and I really want to help build awareness and grow people's, ability to be all that they want to be in their work and not hide parts of themselves anymore. It's not a workforce of hyper specialists or, deep experts in blank. It's a world where people are multifaceted and multidimensional. And that's something we need to recognize and be ready to know how to communicate. That's what I really care about. So I'm so excited to be here, and there's more to come. Please reach out, and I hope to see you all soon.